I love it when I have a design team assignment that helps me to look at my current supplies in a new light. Over on Hip Kit Club, I am sharing a technique video or a technique focus where I'm using my border punches. Now I have several border punches, I have a whole drawer of them, and I showed you a few of them at the beginning of this video. I tend to reach for my basic shapes like scallops, postage stamp edge, notebook edge, but I decided to blow off the dust of my other border punches and use one that I have never used before. I also wanted to think of a unique way to use it. And so today I'm excited to share with you what I came up with. Now, first of all, I'm going to build the basic design of this layout. I want my technique to be the focus, so I'm going to keep the overall design pretty simple. So first off, I decided to map my photo with the lilac cardstock. I chose that because I love the way that the colors looked against that paper. I also wanted to use it as the border of my layout, so I went ahead and gutted the center of it to use for the photo mat and then save the outside edge to build the rest of the page on. Now, this photo of my family was a snapshot that we took on Easter weekend when we were at another family function. And so I wanted it to have nice springy, Easter colors. I was drawn to that plaid because look how cute it is. Has all this fun spring colors in it. And then I paired it with that large light blue polka dot. I went ahead and just built a square on my background, and then I used a corner rounder on all four corners. Before I started this layout, I fussy cut one full sheet of flowers, and I just had those setting off to the side. I decided to use two of those large florals on the two corners of my photo to really highlight that photo. I also matted the photo on a really bright blue pattern paper, and I love that because it pulls out the blue in the plaid, but it also really draws your attention to that photo. I also grabbed the label die cuts from the embellishment kit, and I used a yellow one there along the bottom of my photo, and that's where I'm going to place my title. Now, I went back to the flower pieces, and I decided that I'm going to build a visual triangle on this page, so I grabbed another one that had the yellow fern leaves, and I'm going to place that in the upper right corner. I also am grabbing another label die cut from that same pack from the embellishment kit, and this time I chose to go with the bright blue label. That way it will balance out the color of the bright blue mat around my main photo. I went to the cardstock die cuts in the main kit and found this little love die cut, and I'm going to be using that as my title. So I'm just going to add some thin foam tape and then add that to the yellow label at the bottom of the page. Now, I felt like my overall design needed another layer to it, so I went back to the cardstock kit, and I'm pulling out this yellow paper called Glow, and I'm going to mat this entire square with that glow paper. I did use the same corner rounder to round the corners of it, but because it's an additional layer, the radius of that corner is a little different, so I just took my scissors and just trimmed it the best I could along that corner. Now, the top right corner, you'll notice, is not very good. Like, I kind of slipped and it's a little wonky. However, that floral piece will end up almost overlapping that corner in the end, and so you're not going to notice it. Now, that blue label frame felt like it needed a little more building out. Like, I needed to build out that cluster a little bit more. So I'm going to grab the chipboard frames from the main kit, and I selected this pink frame. On the other side of, I believe it's that plaid paper, is this black and white floral. So I'm just going to back that pink frame with a scrap of that black and white floral, and then I'll layer that up with the blue label, and I really like how that looks. Now, here's where I'm going to start with my border punch technique, and I kind of practiced it on these scrap pieces of cardstock there. What I'm going to do is I'm going to peel up this blue polka dot paper. You can see I'm just throwing some baby powder on it there to take off the adhesive, and I'm going to cut a slice out of it. I marked this the cut lines with that practice piece. The reason I want to cut a slice out of it is this particular border punch lines up right with the edge. Now, sometimes when you use like a scallop punch, it will take off a little sliver of paper, but this one does line up right with the edge like I mentioned before. And so I wanted the pattern of the large blue polka dot to continue instead of kind of have a stop and a start with a space in between. I hope that makes sense. So that's the reason I took the slice out of it. Now, thank heavens for the markings on the actual border punch, because that helped me to line up the pattern and make sure that they were mirror images of each other on each side. So now that I have both edges of those pieces punched, I'm going to, before I adhere them back to the page, I'm going to add a piece of solid cardstock underneath. I grabbed this light pink color called Blush from the cardstock kit to test that out. And then I also grabbed the Glow to see what that looked like because that tied in with the yellow border around the entire piece. But the teardrop pattern just wasn't showing through those colors very well. So I grabbed a third color, which is called Blush. It's a darker pink, and it almost mimics the color of the flowers in the clusters or that pink frame in the upper right corner. And I also like it because the teardrop pattern really shows through it well and will help that this lacing technique to really shine. Now, the border punch that I'm using is by EK Success. Unfortunately, I don't think they make it anymore, and I don't know the name of it. I know you're going to ask me that. So, but this technique is going to work with any kind of border punch that you have that has holes in it. So here I'm just pulling or setting down my practice little piece there, and I was trying to decide if I want to have a bow at the top, but because my visual triangle kind of centers towards the lower part of the page where my photo is, I decided that I'm just going to lace it up kind of corset style and hide the ends of the string behind the photo. Now, when you cut your string to do this lacing technique, be sure to cut a lot more string than you think you'll need. The reason is the lacing takes up a lot of length of that twine. Also, you're going to have to trim the end multiple times because it starts to get frayed as you thread it through the holes. And also grab your bent nose tweezers to help you grab that little tiny thread or string as you pull it through. The string I used is just some crochet twine that I got at the craft store, and it's a great width. It's not too thick, it's not too thin, and it shows up nicely with this lacing technique. You also saw that I added some foam tape on the left and right edges of my photo, and that was just to bring it up to the same level or height as that string. The string did add a little bit of thickness or bulk, and so I just added that foam tape to make sure everything was balanced. The next thing I did was grab those butterflies that you saw there, and there's several butterflies throughout the February kits, but I decided to use the ones that had this outline design. So I found 2 of them in the vellum pack in the embellishment kit, and then the third one, the yellow one, is a cardstock die cut from the main kit. The next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to grab these chipboard frames. These are also from the main kit. And I'm just going to build out the layers or just add some details around my 2 clusters, my photo cluster and my other cluster in the top right corner. So I'm just testing out some things here. But what I decide to do is to cut them in half. And that way I can use them in more than one place. So for this light blue one, I'm going to add one to the right edge, as you see there. I'm going to add the other side or the other piece of it. I'll cross from it on the left edge, and I really like that because it provides an anchoring spot for that purple butterfly. I will also cut this bracket frame, this light pink bracket frame, in half. I place a little piece of it down by the title, and then the other piece will be pointing towards that lacing of the string. Like the point of the bracket is kind of centered on that lacing, and I really like that. In the upper right corner, I'm going to use this slide frame, and I'm cutting apart the 2 colors. I'm going to use the light blue portion to kind of frame that teal butterfly. And then I'm going to tuck in the black polka dotted frame. That's to bring the black color up to that cluster that you see from the title. And then I'll tuck the little yellow piece at the top edge of that cluster. Now on the chipboard frames, there were a couple of little hearts, and it reminded me, oh yeah, I have a whole sheet of puffy hearts from the embellishment kit. So I want to use those. So I went and grabbed them, and I love this sheet. I love that you have so many different sizes of puffy hearts. Now I end up using mostly the very smallest tiny size and the next size up. And I'm going to test those here for a bit. So I'll cut part of that out just because I'm very indecisive, and it took me a long time to decide which colors to go where. So you'll see how I land. I also tested one of the larger hearts on the center of the letter O of love. I like to put a heart by love if I'm using it as a title, if I can. But this particular size of heart just didn't quite work with that font, so I'll leave it off this time. So here's where I landed with the hearts. I placed 2 each in the bottom clusters by the main photo, and then you'll see that there's 3 in the top cluster. And there's 2 at the very top, and then there's kind of a hidden one on the right edge. There's a lilac covered one that I added to that blue frame. I also wanted to use one of these large puffy hearts because I haven't used one of those yet in my layouts for February. So I tucked one just overlapping the bottom edge of that blue label. I wrote down a few journaling details just to make sure I had enough room, but then I kind of remembered, oh yeah, I've already created a layout about this Easter weekend with my family at this family event that we're at, and so I don't need to put a lot of details. I just want to put that it was Easter and what year it was. So I'll erase that and I'll just add that later. Before I do that, I'm going to add a couple more flowers that I fussy cut from the floral pattern paper. So I'm just tucking a purple one up in the right hand corner and then another one over on the left, just so that repeats in both clusters. And now I want to add a phrase to this puffy heart. There are these cut apart strips on the bottom of the cut apart cards for the Pocket Life Kit, and I love them. There's so many cute phrases in there and tons of colors to choose from. I decided to go with this light pink one that says, "I love our life together." And now I'm going to use the Puffy Alpha stickers. There's actually 2 full sheets of this alphabet in the kit. There's a black set and then the other side has a full white set. So I'm going to use the black letters here to spell out Easter 2017. And then that will actually finish up my layout. So I hope you've enjoyed or felt inspired to pull out your border punches and try this lacing technique. It's super cute, it adds a ton of texture, and I really love it. If you haven't ordered the February 2023 hip kits, there's still some left in the shop, but the March kits are shipping right now, so be sure to come and subscribe and come hang out with us in the Hip Kit Club Facebook group. You'll see all the beautiful things that the members are creating as well as the other design team members. You guys, thanks so much for joining me and happy spring! We'll see you again soon.